All right.
All right. One love, family, blessings and wholeness. I'm joined today
Dobre
by my
solnышко.
good brother Oleg. And Oleg is he's a sort of a raw food nutrition activist. He's a hip hop artist. He's a sort of humanitarian and animal activist or animal rights activist. And he loves cold exposure, and he's got an amazing story, an amazing life, and I really appreciate my brother Oleg. So thank you, brother, for joining me today.
Always a pleasure, brother. Always a pleasure to come sit to visit and lick a little reason, talk to each other from the heart, you know.
Yes,
And I'm really motivated a lot by the things that you do, and not just me, but a lot of people that are in our circle. Whenever just you're mentioning or your visuals come in, it's always yeah. This is how we spread the light. Only this way. This is the way.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. That fills my heart. I just I wanna benefit all the wonderful beings that are here, like yourself and Perry and all the family.
Yeah,
It's
we have a small circle, but all these people that you have on, and they're just so freaking special, man. It's just it makes the inner reflection like even brighter. It's like, okay, there's a possibility that we're out here. We know that this is a fulfillment process, and we're all like part of each other in a way.
we're changing the world by changing ourselves, by taking that responsibility to create our highest vibration. And you know and it doesn't come easy. You know how it is. You gotta it's it's
Ooh,
beneficial and it's worth it, but it is a challenge and a struggle, you know in a lot of ways.
the last 2 months have been really hard for me. I tore out two of my rotary cups,
Oh.
in my shoulders.
Hmm.
So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, let's see how it goes, because they said I gotta glue them, like I gotta operate on them. And
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't raise my hands up, bro. And this is from I do religiously pull-ups, like 3,000 to 5,000 pull-ups a month. That's my daily routine. This is what I've been doing for a long time, and not being able to do one pull-up for 2 months, that was very challenging. So, and I know that I'm not the only one. The last 2 months, for some reason, because of whatever it is, it's been really tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, we're going through changes collectively, and changes with the energy of the sun and the earth. The Schumann resonance has been changing. There's been coronal mass ejections, you know and this affects us on a big way. There's changes in the stars. We're moving into Pluto and Aquarius. Oh, look at that puppy. Oh, super fuzzy. That's your new puppy.
Yes, yeah, he's Amish. Saved him from the Amish, and he's really a puppy. Phil. He's like, uh, you could smell the Amish on him. It hasn't worn off. He smells like horse poop. Like, and I love it.
That's awesome. I love dogs. That's kind of what I wanted to, frame this conversation around. It's just around nature and the way nature heals and our connection with animals and the forest and the elements. And, you know, love to see you jumping in the cold water every day and the ice and stuff. It's like I was saying before we kind of started the live, that I've been trying to bring myself to doing more cold water exposure or just cold exposure. So I go out in the morning and sun gaze barefoot for about 15 minutes when it's about 10 degrees and try to expose myself as much as possible. But I'm a sun lover. I just love the heat and the sun and the light.
There's nothing that could replace the sun, but sometimes the cold has its benefits, and what if you can't dip in? A good thing to do is just to take like a bucket and just splash yourself with the cold water.
Hmm.
It'll activate the heat inside you. It's crazy. Like that water over there is like 1 degrees right now, but when you go in there, it's like your body starts heating up, and that it's definitely been a healing journey for me, because I've been um I started this journey about 5 something years ago, and I just stuck with it, because to me it's like, if something feels good once, then do it again. It's gonna make you feel, and it's been doing it, and every time it gets better and better and better. It doesn't disappoint.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how things that are hard and seem sort of painful, when you do them, they often feel good, like working out or cold exposure or fasting, you know, um, all these kinds of things, or, uh, trying something new, you know, uh, that that's how we grow, that's how we build. So,
Fasting has been a life changer for me, and it's probably the best natural resource that is that we it's a resource at this point, because we've went astray so far from the natural way. So it's actually a resource, because it's like, and it's like, it's nothing actually. It's just you are staying away from something.
that's another thing interesting to me, is how much we heal and build by not doing stuff. You know, um, it's just as important, the things that we exclude, as the things that we include. But I really like to do that, like subtraction by addition. That's how, I'd like to um, get ask you a little bit more about your journey. But that was how it all started for me, is just getting into raw foods, just adding raw foods, like, changed me to where I started to, like, let go of meat and cheese and bread and all those things more and more, because my body just craved the raw foods more. So, I wanted to, you know, get into a little bit of your story, if you don't mind sharing, because
Yeah.
you've gone through it all, brother. Like, um, you're growing up, and the difficulties you went through there, and the way you just come to shine and rise through all of it, is what I see. And your journey into the health, like, you care to share about that
Yeah,
at all, or
yeah,
share a
yeah,
little
yeah,
about that?
definitely, because it's definitely a journey of rise and fall. Rise and fall, rise and fall, like. And it started out, I would say, like, I grew up very, very in the most magical way. Like, if there's a magical way to grow up, it's called like the barefoot way, because we lived in a way with no connections to the grid. We didn't have the water we used to carry to the house. We were bare feet the whole warm season. We were just naked, like, like everybody was naked in the sauna. Like, nobody was like, and everywhere would be barefoot treading. There would be no phones, no radio, no TV, none of that. And we weren't missing anything. We were just being fulfilled at that time. So at that age, it was like, usually, and what I've noticed too is, a lot of people up to the first 8, 9 years of their life, there's this formative state usually, and at that age, 8, 9, something happens to people that a great change goes. And to me, the change was coming from the Soviet Union to Brooklyn. I didn't even know I was in the Soviet Union until I went to first grade, because I was like, coming from the country, right? And this coming from the country of Belarus, like, where you just do not, my people were not in school. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't, my grandmother, great grandmother, they weren't educated, So it's like, coming
Life
from
was.
people, they were not indoctrinated to a certain degree, So
Mhm.
coming into this environment of the Soviet school, I was like, nah, this is not for me. So this is where I developed my character of being like a badass. So I would fight everybody. I would just do everything that, like in first grade, second grade, there's always somebody competing for the first position. Like, that would be me, first or second, always. So, and that stuck with me. I came to Brooklyn, and in Brooklyn, 90, 91 Brooklyn, it was a different scene. It was all hip hop, and I never heard music in my life. So hearing the drums, and that was like, gave me freedom. You know, hearing that music gave me freedom. That gave me a voice. I was like, all that energy, it's like an outlet for. So the inner city culture was something that pretty much raised me after that point. But I would never forget where I come from. My grandmother, even my what I use now, Raya. That's my grandmother's name. Let me close this so they don't. That's my grandmother's name, and she was like the sweetest person on this planet. Like she was, you would get along with her. Any Rasta would get along with her. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
only thing that we didn't have was ganja, or we didn't have the stuff that that would actually make you healthier, because alcohol was like, you know, that was we had like a moonshine thing going on, and real country, real country,
Hmm. Hmm.
And so my journey with health started was 5 6 years ago. Like I went through a big change with after I had this experience of like some sort of connection, male to female, that was very beautiful, and it was just like, and then letting go of that, right? It go through like depression and all this thing, and many other reasons. I guess my health started to dwindle down, and I was just like at a point in my life where I was like accepting my death or whatever, the transition. I was like suffering with something heavy, and the suffering could lead you to go, transition, or you could get stronger from it, and that's what. It's your choice, it's what
Hmm.
you make the choice. So I started out with the cold water, but the cold water led me to more meditation work, to breath work, giving
Hmm.
kisses to your body through the breath, and a whole new world opened up inside of me. And it was like 4 years of I got stuck in this because of a situation in my life where I was helping out a person that was very close to me, that was pretty much in trouble in a way, and that was like one of my kids' moms, and I have a lot of love for her, but I put myself in a situation where I tried to like neutralize the energy and help my kids out, and but I got stuck in this little 1 bedroom shack where you probably, I'm not sure if you already seen me at that point when I started doing this social media and stuff, and I had a choice to just get stuck there with the cockroaches, or next to me was the greatest beach in the world, Coney Island Beach. And I was like, I'm there. I was 5 6 hours a day, 7 hours, rain, sun, sleep, snow. I was out there brooding around, talking to myself, microdosing on some shrooms, and just crying it out, letting it go. And I spent so much time by myself. It was so beautiful, the journey, that the healing journey, and all that electrical charge, going barefoot, and learning that this is actually like what makes me happy. You leave me at a beach for a very long time, I won't, you won't see me like not knowing what to do. I'll figure it out. I found old glasses, I found things that wash the shore, little bottles with messages in it, rocks, and I made the journey so healing through like, I guess, talking to God in a way, which is talking to myself, because I was like, God, what's my purpose? What's my purpose every day that I'm running there? And God would say, you just keep running, bro. That's it. And there would
Hmm.
be this mark there, like 2.5 mile mark on the beach, because that's how long the Coney Island beach is, from one end to Seagate to where Biden 15th, where I would start. It's 2.5 miles one way. And I would just go like Forrest Gump, 2.5 miles one way, 2.5 miles another way, 2.5 miles this way, again, back and forth,
Wow.
back and forth. And in the course of the 4 years, I think I ran like maybe 4,000 miles or something like that.
Wow.
And that was healing to me. I got stronger. My knees crapped out. When I first started, my knees were crapping out by half a mile. I couldn't do it. But that's the power of belief and resetting and training, is that I started like looking at guys, how do I make my knees stronger? So I started like doing, and everything gets better. And that's, I was talking to my pops today, who's accepted cold water therapy into his life. He was an alcoholic his whole life, you know, and he's that, and I keep telling him, pops, like it's not just, it's what you think, it's what you say, your cells, you know, they hear you. You know,
Hmm.
you don't get older, you get stronger. You
Hmm.
get stronger. That's the only way to live for me. So this has been like an amazing journey, and meeting people like you, people like PJ, Krishna, all these other people that are so freaking beautiful, and keep lighting up the way as we go, you know. And
Yes,
it's
sir.
definitely been a rise and fall. So then this recent thing that I had with my shoulders, it's a miracle too, because I have an MRI there that they said I need 9 months recovery after surgery, and I'm back to doing 100 pull-ups already. So you know what I mean? Like
Wow.
it,
Wow.
it's something that it's good to attest, and it's good to share it, because there's people out there like, oh, you're gonna die from this. No, you're gonna get stronger from it, and your resilience, your stubbornness, man, it just speaks a lot in the results of your life, you know.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for sharing that, brother. Being vulnerable and opening up, your story, because I think it's important for people to hear this, because it's like we were talking about, the last few months have been like challenging for people. I think collectively over the last several years, we've been going through lots of challenges. We're in a time like never before where we're inundated by the technology, by the electrosmog, by uh, misinformation, by stress from work, you know, uh, uh, sort of generational trauma, so much stuff. And that's the message that I want to put forth today, is to realize, this is sort of my personal experience with the healing of my son. We were talking about a little bit before we hopped on here. He has a neurological disease. He's been dealing with stuff his whole life. It got much worse due to some bad choices he made, and some things he neglected. And you know it really, and he had to move back in, and we had to work with him and heal him. And it was so the most challenging thing I've ever been through by far, to watch my child suffer, and and to feel sort of like the powerlessness of it. But it brought something out of me. It brought more compassion out of me. It made me realize I could go through, you know if I could go through that. It was like almost harder than if he had died, or if I had gone through it myself, to watch him suffer that way. you know and so but this is the thing about, it's my experience also with like fasting, and with working in gardens and all this stuff. Like I herniated my L3 about about 10 or 12 years ago, maybe it was a little more. And just doing rock work and working in the garden. And I thought I had to spend 6 months healing, just on my back. And I thought, this is it, man. I can't snowboard anymore. I can't like do gardens. What am I going to do? But I went to the chiropractor. I started doing exercises. I started to build up, and I build myself back up stronger than I was before my injury, you know. And then, this is uh, part of the human spirit. Like we want to be healthy and happy and strong, and that's our natural state. But sometimes you have to go through hell. There's a great saying: if you're going through hell, keep going. You know,
There's a light out there.
yeah, because you know you don't want to stop and hang out in hell. You know, you want to just keep going. And get through. And just how much nature has been the main thing that has been the healing medicine, both like mentally and spiritually, as well as like physically. To be in nature, to be grounding, to get in the sunlight, to work with natural foods, to work with fasting, all this stuff that is basically free. Food should be free. We're the only beings that pay to live on this planet. and we're supposed to be the most intelligent ones, you know. But you know, uh, there's so much like breath work and sun gazing and cold therapy and grounding and you know fasting and uh, exercise and stuff that if you just do a discipline that's part of the nature of your own body, you're going to like grow in the light and become more healthy, happy, and free, you know, because of it. So
Yeah, and that's the real wealth too, because that's why I do my real estate skits and all these other things. You know, like I love acting. You know, I love it because it's like, come on now, we already know you could have a billion Bentleys and you're still poor as poor can be. You know what I mean?
mhm,
It ain't gonna cut it. Now, if you have your health, then you got everything. You got it's not just like pain free. It's like it's just a way of living that accepting that you are responsible for your wellness, you know, and that's where the discipline comes in. And everybody, there's so many different healing journeys that I hear, and I just want to always like share with people. Don't be afraid to be nothing at first, because people like David Goggins and all these other people, like, you don't have to be like them. You don't have to just run for a mile a day. Just do it every day.
mhm,
Don't worry about it, because when Goggins is going to be 80 years old, he ain't going to be walking without
yeah,
like 10 steel plates. Who needs all that? He's broke. He's not rich. You know what I mean? Like, that ain't the way to go. You know what I mean? Like, you get all these accolades, but what's the and I tell I got a little crew here now, Woodstock
yeah,
Survival. We're like in
yeah,
the trailer park and everything, filming. I got a new show that I'm starting and everything.
cool.
And
Uh-huh.
this past year, my close brother, he passed away on the fentanyl thing, which really, like, he was a lot of people, you know, that fentanyl thing is crazy garbage, you know, but it's like, it's just like that's what he chose. But when he passed on, like, I hugged the tree and I was just crying, like, and just hugging this tree for a while, you know. And it's like that brought me so much healing. And so I took these other kids around me in Woodstock, because, you know, Woodstock is like, I have a bunch of these guys walking around here. They're like Jimi Hendrix, they're like Joplin, they're like all these great guys, but they're freaking like. So I took them in, a couple of us. It's not a big crew. It's like 4, 5 of us, 6 of us, you know. And I'm like trying to like be two. I'm 2 generations up on them. You know what I mean? And I have a lot of friends that already like passed on that shit. You know, so I'm getting them together to be like, look, like, this is, if we put it together this way, you could do so much better in your life. So I'm keeping this youthful energy going. You know, like keeping that going. And I lost my train of thought a little bit, but basically, when Leo died this year, it was like, I was like, it kind of, when these guys come to me and I know they're addicts or they're, you know, I always try to like reach out to them. I don't go look for them, you know, just God
Mhm,
sends them to me, you know. I don't.
mhm,
I don't want to open up a rehab. I don't want to deal with that shit, because I have so many traumas from just not losing, because we don't lose anybody technically. It's just like they choose to fly high. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not.
mhm,
I was there too. Like, not with the heavy drugs, but I was just robbing and sticking people up and doing all types of wicked things that also brought me the high. Or I was looking for a way out. I had 50 state troopers pointing the gun at me, you know? So I was like, I I'm like, this Woodstock survival show. It's really just dedicated to anybody that's been through a blockage in their life, and that's wants to come up out of it, you know. And we're doing, like, this next album I'm putting out is called "Living in a Brave New World," and Woodstock survival is like song number 4 on there. It's really special place here. It's like a portal. Maybe you'll come visit one day. You know, it's like a portal for all these artists that came here. That and you know Dylan Hendrix. We know all these, but there were so many others, like
Hmm.
legends, like Jagger John, like legends, like
Hmm.
that Jagger Jim. All these people that you would never even hear.
Well, I just lost sound on you, brother. It sounds like.
Is it back up?
Oh yeah, it's back. Never mind.
All right. All these people that you would never even hear. They're legendary, but they're that's why this place is kind of amazing because the energy that came from here, it lifted up many, many, many people like throughout the world, like through the billions of people, and they don't even know that it stemmed from this little area over here. Something about it. It's like it's a real portal.
Hmm.
And if you are going through some struggles, man, I'm telling you, just keep going. You know, keep going through that tunnel. You're gonna make it. And the best thing in life, though, is to live without fear. You know, without fear of justifying some sort of mediocre life, because that's the tragedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. They say the enemy of the great is the good. You know, if things are just good enough, if you can kind of just like, yeah, it's okay. You know, it's mediocre. I I could deal with it. None of us, I think, are here to live like it's an okay life. You know, we
Yeah,
want to live a great life. Every one of us, every being on this planet is a great being. You know, and that's another thing we share. You know, as a love of Shakyamuni Buddha and His Majesty Haile Selassie. You know, and Shakyamuni Buddha talks about how every being here is precious. And I love that you're going and working with these people who are going through you know sort of tragedy in their life and dealing with their traumas. I lost a friend this last year to fentanyl too, and he wasn't even you know I remember growing up with this kid, and we were into the Grateful Dead, and we smoked weed and did shrooms and stuff like that. And he liked to drink, but he was just he was in a bar one night talking with a girl, and he wasn't even like really hitting on her or anything, but her boyfriend thought he was, and he took him out and beat him within an inch of his life. And
well,
he got on fentanyl, to as pain relief, and he got addicted, and he died. And it's
yeah,
it's hard to see, and it's sad to see. There's a lot of this, you know, uh, there's a lot more out there in terms of really toxic substances that are, I had some friends in high school who got addicted to heroin, you know, and I'm so proud of them because they banded together and pulled each other out of it. They were like, we're gonna quit this shit, and now they all live like healthy, happy lives with kids and you know
yeah.
all this stuff, and they took that responsibility. And another thing I like about what you just shared, is because that was something else I wanted to share on this live, was just the healing power of music, you know, and because we both love music, and I think every being loves music. I haven't ever met anyone who's like, I hate music and never listen to music, like everyone's got their own flavor, but there's so much beautiful music, and that, I feel like this reality, this universe is actually music. Like Tesla talks about, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of frequency, sound, and vibration, you know, or frequency, energy, and vibration. And that the sun is vibrating a tone of music, the earth is, each one of us. And so, this healing through nature, for being in the elements, being in the sun, being with the earth. I love that you were hugging a tree when you were releasing your friends, or your friend, because trees have this amazing healing power. I call them cell towers of love, you know. It's just like this big old electromagnetic field of like this ancient being that is just reaching to the sky and like grabbing this energy and bringing it down into the earth, and how how beautiful that is. How, there's therapies like that, that are just, if you just follow your own heart, like you were saying, like with your journey and healing and running on the beach, where there's all those negative ions from the surf, and from being barefoot in the sand, you know, that it's just charging your body with light, you know, and bringing you to that wholeness, and that no matter where you are in your journey, it can be like the worst, hardest places, you know, to, things are pretty good, but with your health, but you feel terrible in your emotional body, we can do these practices, like the breatharian path practices, that that's just those are just practices that if you put them all together, they kind of stack on top of each other and create more and more healing benefit, you know. Um, so,
Yeah,
um,
they definitely are like little tools, you know. And it's like it's just where you pointing, you know. It's like, but yeah, I was like outside when when yeah, when my friend passed away this last year. The thing, it was so weird because he was supposed to come here. Like he was like, I'm coming there in a bus, and he just died right on the bus, you know. And yeah, it was like the tree was right there, and that tree saved me pretty much. Like not saved me, but gave me a lot of like, it just like I know that he's smart. 'Cause that kid was so freaking happy all the time. It's not even funny. You met that kid. He's like always smiling, always happy. But he was talking about it too. He already predicted it. So and I have like 10 songs recorded with him. And I'm just like I don't even want to put it out. It's just like in there. I just can't listen to it even.
mhm.
But basically, what I wanted to tell you is that sometimes you got to go into the pit, because there was a point in my life where it was like I was always trying to keep my kids away from everything. I took them with me to a bunch of places, trying to protect them. And I took them
Mhm.
to a lot of communities, like even a similar place like yours. I would come there and just teach my kids how to do something with planting, gardening, and stay there for free and exchange. This is how I lived for like 4 or 5 years when I was just under the radar. There was a time where I had to be under the radar for purposes like to stay free from these federales and stuff like that. And I was just like protecting my kids. But then there was a time it's like I brought him right into the pit. And it's like I let my daughter go through the craziness, but I was right there. And my son he's more like he just like cocoon, he's just like he likes to hide, but now he's coming out. He's being more like he's being more out for some reason. It's like when you protect your kids too much, it's not a good thing. So you gotta expose them.
That
And there's a balance. There's a great balance. So that move when I just took him into the pit, you know instead of taking him out, that 4 years, 5 years, I was there for them every day, just showing them the way through my actions, not trying to force him. And now my daughter's like, Pops, I remember every day when I was out there partying, doing all this dumb shit. You were out there in the beach. You were out there doing the meditations, the breath work, and that's the way. And that's what she's doing now without any forceful things. She's doing, yoga, stretching, breath work, learning about all these things. And I just want to say, if you're a parent out there, and we, it's almost impossible to be perfect or
oh
find
yeah,
some sort of balanced way. It's like,
it's an illusion.
yeah, there is no perfect way, and it's sometimes you got to go through that hard period. And when I was there, I didn't have a freaking dollar in my pocket, bro. I was like, I didn't care, but I had the most happiness.
Hmm.
uh, I
Hmm.
was sometimes we had 6 of us, 8 of us in one room. You know what I mean? Like I took all of her knucklehead friends. I took them all in. I watched them. Watched them mess us up and kicked them out or whatever. It's like and now I have all these things, like, because of all these, like I have a lot of things, like, wow, cars, houses, all these things, but it didn't, I'm not any more happier than I was at the beach without anything. You know what I mean? So it's like, that
That
is the true wealth. That is the true. I could go and pitch to the kids now. Hey, this is how you got to make this money. That's not. There's no happiness in that.
I like that you made that point. I've been really, sort of revisiting my Buddhist vows, and uh, uh, the the path of Buddhahood. That's what I got my sights set on. You know, and they talk about the eight worldly concerns in Buddhism of pleasure and pain, you know, gain and loss, uh, praise and blame, and like your status, and so those are the pitfalls that keep us from happiness. You can be wealthy and be miserable, or you can be poor and be happy, or you can be rich and be happy, or you can be poor and be miserable. It's a matter of like your attachment, and you know um this Rinpoche I was just listening to was talking about um just the confusion that happens with the brain, because money can support happiness as long as you feel like, you know it, I think of it in terms of like chakras. If your root chakra is covered, then you're not working from that place. And I think that's the way the system kind of works us and manipulates us, is they always have us thinking about sex, money, food, material things, you know, um, status, all of these things of the eight worldly concerns that can throw us off from our happiness. But our natural state is happiness. And if we just follow our internal guides and honor our guides, they'll lead us, to that happiness. And I've been in the place too. I grew up where, my I grew up in Los Alamos, which was where the atom bomb was created. And it's a scientific community. Everybody is like amazing, there's more PhDs per capita than any other place in the world. The median income is like upper middle class, you know. Um
It's
and I had
Texas,
all
right?
was that
Texas.
New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico. Okay.
Yeah, and so, I grew up with everything I ever needed, and I started to cling like to material happiness as my happiness, and I was miserable. And I learned to let that go, and I've been living, our family has been living like less than $20,000 a year for like decades. You know, I tripled my earnings last year. I just, worked hard, and it helped with the well-being. But I was I was I've never been happier in my life than in the last 10, 20 years. you know and it didn't have anything to do with the money I was making. Is that I was fulfilling my purpose and doing what I loved. I was out in nature every day, gathering herbs. I was working on the land. I was sun gazing, meditating, you know, making music, all these things that really feel, give me fulfillment and joy. And I like what you said also about like, you know, as a parent, you really want the best for your kids, and a lot of parents try to guard their children from the difficulties, and we did that. We home birthed, we homeschooled, or homesteading is teaching the kids how to garden and how to forage and how to play music and how to meditate and all this stuff. And I thought, this is perfect, they're going to grow up so strong. But then when they actually had to connect in with the rest of the world, it was very challenging for them. you know it was
Yeah.
extremely challenging. And they had to, especially my older two boys, had to go through a lot of trials. You know, I'm grateful my youngest, there's something about him. He's just like, he's just magical. He just really, you know, uh, dove into his self-care and self-work, and, not afraid to work hard and make money. So he just bought himself a BMW M3. Like so stoked. It
Nice.
was like,
What year is it? What year is it?
oh shoot, I don't even know. He just brought it home last night, and it's a car he worked at a job for a couple of years. He saved up,
That's
all
awesome.
the money that was gifted to him, everything he just gathered up, and then he found this car and he went and got it. So
I love BMWs. I have one in the garage. It's just standing there. I don't even ride it no more. I just pass by it. I, I like to look at it. I don't know why I have it. I don't know what's the
that's
purpose.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I never was really into cars that much. I like trucks, just because I'm a mountain boy.
Yeah, I like
But
old school trucks. I'm a big Suburban 90, 89, those Suburbans. Whew, I love
yeah,
those
yeah,
cars.
yeah. I have a 2000 Suburban. It's it's awesome, and a Nissan hardbody uh, truck, and those things are awesome. And for me, it's perfect because I like to go snowboard, and I'm carrying plants and mulch and rocks and stuff, and you know,
I
um,
have Escalade, the 2006 one, and it's like a Suburban pretty much. I mean, it's my favorite truck. It's just like so much fun to drive, and the sound system just I blast that shit everywhere. Like
that's awesome.
gotta represent because we grew up like real poor, like in the worst blocks, like, and somebody had the car culture that was like the system. No matter what car you got to
Yeah,
bump it loud.
that's totally the valley I live in. It's in northern New Mexico. It's like a village. There's I think like 3,000 people that live here. You know, and a lot of people live in trailers, but then they drive Lexuses, with bumping systems, or they have the lowrider culture here. I think you would love, brother. They
I
have
love
like
Lord. I
they
got that
have
Monte
some.
Carlo too. I have that. I don't know if you've seen it. I have that blue '73 Monte Carlo.
Uh,
That thing is so sweet, man. That thing is probably such a pleasure to ride in that thing. Like, it ain't nothing like these new cars, man. It's just a different feeling.
yeah, and so that's the thing. It's like if you love cars, my kids got me into the fast cars. They're all into uh, uh, Japanese cars and Beamers, and making sleeper cars, and driving fast. And I'm always, as a parent, I'm like, oh god, sorry, just be safe, like like uh, they, they got that young yang, testosterone pumping
I
through their
remember those
body.
days, man. We used to boost cars, max them out, 160, 180. Man, we were some young knucklehead kids. Everybody went to juvie. Everybody in juvie was for like stealing cars and doing all this dumb shit. And I was just, you know,
Dang.
I was in that. It was just like growing up without a father figure. It was definitely like the gangster way was like that's the dope way, that's the way you got to do it, because that's who was around us, that's who.
Well, that's a majorly important point because especially I think men and women, but especially young boys, I think need to go through an initiatic experience, and a trial. You want to, as a young man, you want to test your metal. You want to see what you're made of. And we don't really have so much of that in our culture. Ooh, castor oil. We don't have like. For me, it was skateboarding. It was like, how else can I like, you know, see what I'm about? How can I like find my limits? You know, and it was, we're kind of punk rock, skateboard kids. We were always being chased by cops because it was,
Skated.
like against the law or something to skateboard, even though like now skateboarding is like, of course, like this phenomenon. It's in the Olympics, and you know
What
people
year
are
were you born?
respected as
Just
athletes. But in
what
our
year?
day, it was like if you were a
What year?
skateboarder.
What year were you born?
77.
70. So yeah, we're pretty much from the same because I'm 82. I remember that headbanger culture. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
Janko jeans.
thrash
Uh,
metal and Bad Brains and
all that shit.
hip
The
hop and
alternative rock. You had all this Nirvana, all this crazy. It was interesting, because hip hop was dominant. But I would love that rock shit, and you know what I mean. And I would always like be with my friends that's all like hip hop turning Nirvana for them, or like, and they're like, oh, get out of here with that, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, and then when I was with the punkers, I would turn them Nas, and I would try to fuse the culture. And that I was the kid that I was messing with a lot of different cliques, different cultures, because where I came from, it's like there was no racism, there was none of that shit. Like you just,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like we weren't conditioned for that. We were just like, it's a different way. It's interesting how if there's people, I realize, for thousands, hundreds of, for as long as we're alive, as Babylon be boining, there's people that is living free, and there's nothing written about them.
Mhm.
There's nothing written about them, and
Yeah.
it's something having to do with your birthing, the documentation, and all these things that are very important, and that's where sexuality comes in. We were taught all this porno sex, and that is the demise of your character, because once we let that energy into the devil, right, which is just the dark side of us, because we lose that power, because once you get the crown, right, you get that boom. Once you're celibate for a certain amount of time, you're the king.
Hmm.
This is how you get your coronation.
Well, that's such an important point because I feel like that is you know, there's a really great Rasta herbalist who was talking about how if we want to heal the culture, we have to heal number one our relationship with the divine feminine, and number two the process of birth. You know,
Number
because that
one.
that's
Number
how
one.
thing that that's how everything gets started for every being. And the mother is this, you know, in Tibetan Buddhism, in Christianity, there's this thing of the divine mother. You know, that is uh, there's something about the way a mother loves her child and the sacredness of that connection. That is lost in the over sexualized culture, and young men being already having so much challenge just with the testosterone just flowing through them, to be have that hypersexualization kind of put on them. No initiatic thing, like you said, growing up without fathers. My dad was there, he loved me, but he had damage with his dad, so he was emotionally and physically distanced from me, you know, and having those role models of that's something that I love about Rastafari, and Rastafarianism is this sort of Solomonic tradition of being an upright, you know, uh, man, being a stand-up, man who is there for his family, is there for his community, is a support, you know, and that word husband, the way husbandry connects with a man's ability to nurture life, to nurture, plants or animals, you know, and to nurture his family and his community. And that's, that's much more natural to us in terms of like those feelings of empowerment and um, joy and confidence and peace, come from a life lived like that, So,
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see my grandfather, and he comes from the old Viking people. Like he's very, very. The guy was just like really good woodworker, everything like, but constantly living in love. The guy is always smiling. He's always telling jokes. Everybody that knows him, you can't talk with him unless you're joking. You know what I mean? And this was the way. This was the way for us. This I was lucky to be around my. I guess not lucky. I wouldn't even say lucky, because I think we chose the experience. So my parents was like pretty much irrelevant through my life, except for like me loving them at a great distance, and accepting them for who they are. But my grandparents was who I was looking for. You know, I knew that these are my guys. These are my people. You know, this is mafia in the real sense. Like,
Mhm.
you take care of each other no matter what. And then I came to see my grandmother 20 years later, you know, and it was the most magical moment because I didn't tell her I was coming. I just flew to Kiev. I have family there too. And I was just like, but I figured, you know, she's old already, so I'll just call her and tell her I'm coming tomorrow, you know, like, and she somehow made it to the airport. She's
Just
like,
showed up.
she went to the, and I just walk right by her. I see her because that's one thing about my grandmother is like, I would like freeze sometimes. I have communication with her that is like eternal because through the eyes, it's like timeless because it's something about it. Like, I could tell you the story that when I was like going through my federal things, that there was a lot of like indictments on me and shit like that, you know, and I was just like with my kids by myself because their mom wasn't there. And I'm walking there on Brighton Beach. It's like one of these foggy nights in November, raining, foggy. And my kids are with me. They're playing over there in the little park section, like in the little playground. And then boom, my grandma shows up. She's already passed on like 5, 6 years, but she shows up in the physical, like for real, like this was my daughter was already like I think 11 years old or something like that. So she remembers this, you know, like she was next to me. I wasn't hallucinating or nothing like that, you know. She shows up and I just freeze and like, you know, again, boom, look in her eyes. I start like crying and smiling and I'm joking with her like usual, you know. She tells me a few jokes, I tell her a few jokes, but the jokes what she told me was very important, you know. And then I turn around and then boom, she's gone, like in the vapor, you know what I mean?
Mm,
So
mm,
can I explain that? I can't explain that. You know, like it's just this is everything is metaphysical. So everything is like don't separate yourself from from it all because
mhm,
it's exactly that. But there's something to it where our ancient relatives are with us through our awareness. To become aware is to also to become aware of them. It's not an illusion. It's not, and there's a whole fear mechanism through the birthing process that keeps us enslaved because that's where the enslavement is. It doesn't mean that somebody is like better or worse, but if you could become aware of where the point of enslavement occurs, we could better the cycle of living here and we could reconnect and rebuild our roots because our roots are strong, you know.
mhm. I love what you just said there. I think it's so important, that we, um, on the one hand, connect with our ancestors. You know, that there used to be across the world. There's this whole thing of like ancestor worship and realizing, where you're coming from. You know, that you come from them. They're like gods to you. That even if they weren't there, physically or to show up for you emotionally or all that stuff, they still they're still in you and you chose them for part of the lessons of this life and the karma you're trying to you know uh, resolve.
And they're there. You might not see him. Like my brother, he also fentanyl man. He crashed his car. He fell asleep behind the wheel. Right, so his car flipped over. The guy stayed alive without a scratch. You know what I mean? Like I know his people's watching him. You know what I mean? He's
Mm-hmm.
a good kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's
You know.
other forces, there's other beings, that are watching for us, and I think we make these agreements pre-life, that we're gonna go through this stuff, and it's gonna be hard, but we know that we have our back covered, and even if we die, you know, there's understanding that we need to like resolve these karmas, and as as we do more and more, I feel like, you were talking about like if we can remember where, you know, sort of the trauma starts, and with birth, that's something that we chose based on past karma, like
Exactly.
can
Exactly.
the Buddhas can move beyond rebirth, but like the Bodhisattvas choose that they'll be reborn again and again until all beings are freed, you know.
The,
So even though it's difficult here in samsara, if we can develop that mind and the practice, then I think there, we can get to the point where we actually there's plenty of Tibetan masters and other people who have past life recall. Even my son Jonah, when he was born, he he was very young, and we were driving there, uh, into Chimayo, and we had a fire in the mountains that we were living in. We got burned out of that place because there was a big forest fire, you know, and this was while he was still, in my wife's womb, and he woke up from a nap as we were coming into town, and there's this little Campo Santo, a little graveyard, and he said, "You know what, mommy? I remember that there was a fire, and before the fire, Franz was pouring dirt on us,
Wow.
and and he, my wife had two children that had died that his her brother had buried in that cemetery, you know,
Wow.
and it was like we were like, how do you know any of that? He was like, 3 or 4 or something like that. It wasn't like he'd been told stories or anything of any of it. He had like this past life memory, and I think that's possible for all of us, even through just the practice of meditation, the practice of like, you know, focusing on our feeling body, to just take a minute to check in and see how we're feeling, you know, is a way to start to track back. Like this one Buddhist Rinpoche was talking about, like if I ask you what you had for lunch last Tuesday, off the bat, you'd probably be like, I don't. But if you actually like track back and think back about, what you did yesterday and who you were with and what you ate yesterday, and then the day before, like you could probably remember actually what you did have last Tuesday, because that's the idea, is that like your subtle mind uh, remembers all of it, remembers everything from all your past lives, from all of this life. But then we block a lot of it out because it's hard, you know. Um, so
Yeah, it's
learning,
something about it, and also through the eyes. Like when you meet somebody in person, right, and you have that connection. That's what I learned a lot from my grandmother. Was like I could go back to the eyes, right? There was like these moments in my life when I'm like 4 years old, and I could go instantly back into the past through the eyes. And then because when I was there at that age, I already was here. It's weird to explain, but there's like something through the eye contact between humans that we could make time travel. We could make time eternal, and that's something in something like there's words that I'm using right now and words that you're using, and we're studying these things based on some other words like samsara, all these things, but these are just words. And what actually it is something that we are kind of like know but are not fully aware, and something through the eyes is magical. And you could tell right away, like when you look somebody in the eyes without fear,
mhm.
you could connect with that person eternally. You could
Well,
remember that moment from the future and from the past.
I think our higher self is our inner child, because when you're a kid, you just run up on the playground and there's someone you like and you're like, hey man, what's going on? Like, you want to play? And like there's no like, you
There's no
know,
fear, there's
there's
no
no
like
fear and there's no like
jealousy.
judgment and all that stuff. And there's been times I can say that I honestly had the same thing the first time I met you, where I was like, this is my brother that I know him even though I've never met him before, you know. Um,
Same feeling, brother, same feeling. Who knows? It's like what's that song, Franix, like who knows, I just go as the trade wind blows.
yes, I love that song.
I have some guests that came right now. I gotta deal with something, but it's been a
Yeah,
freaking amazing journey just to talk about these things. I honestly just like cried a little bit, let out a lot of things, and I love you, brother. Let's catch up soon.
love you too, Oleg. Thank you for spending your time with me. Thank you for sharing your story. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you got something from this. check out my brother Oleg's music and his links. I put them down in the description if you'd like to see his YouTube or check out his hip hop. Um, you can check him out there. He's
Woodstock
also
survival. All right, Jesse. I love you, brother. I'll talk to you later.
all right. Love you too. Be well, Oleg.
Peace, family.
Peace.
Prosperity.